Okay, I think we're ready here. So thank you everybody for coming. My name is Alex Free, and I'm the Research and Fellowship Coordinator for Minnesota Sea Grant and one of the co-organizers of Twin Ports Freshwater Folk. Twin Ports Freshwater Folk aims to provide a venue for networking and learning for the Twin Ports freshwater community. And I'd like to start off by thanking our sponsors, specifically the US EPA for hosting us today, as well as Large Lakes Observatory, Natural Resources Research Institute, the MPCA, and Minnesota Sea Grant for supporting TPFF over the years through organizational and financial support. We have a TPFF tradition where we always start by opening the floor for announcements from attendees. These can be upcoming events, they can be milestones, anything that you'd like to share with the broader professional community. So if you're in the room and you would like to share an announcement, please raise your hand and I'll have you actually come up here so they can hear you online because the microphone is right here. And if you're online, please raise your hand, your virtual hand, and I will call on you, and then we can have you speak. So are there any announcements in the room? Okay, can you come up here so they can hear you online? You just talk.
Okay. Hi, my name is Brenda Greenfield. I work at UMD Medical School. I'm a psychologist and scientist there. But I've started a podcast recently that is interviews with people who are very familiar with Lake Superior. And it's going to be running through November. So if you're interested, I can share that information with you. Recent topics have been things like internal waves or nutrients, or I just spoke with Eric Reddix this week, who's done all the Ojibwe names for the rivers up Highway 61. So if you're interested in listening, I can get you connected to that. And then I'm also having a photography show with pictures of Lake Superior in September, and there's an opening September 15th. So if you're interested, find me after and I can give you information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements in person? Julie? I guess if you have an announcement, you just want to come up and too. That's great too.
So yeah, I guess it's not like a sciencey one, but the St. Louis River Alliance has like a learn how to kayak event next week on Wednesday. So registration for that's at the St. Louis River Alliance website. And I think they have some sea kayaks to rent, or you could bring your own.
Okay. And I don't see any hands up online. I don't see any in the chat. So that means we can get to our main event. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Callie Grones. Callie is an AmeriCorps member serving with the Friends of Lake Superior Reserve and the Lake Superior National Estuary and Reserve. Callie graduated from the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point in May 2024 and came to Superior in September 2024. She assists the Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve with communications, volunteer and event coordination, and community engagement. She also works with several sectors of Lake Superior Reserve, including stewardship and education. Today, Callie is going to share her Lake Superior service story. Please join me in giving Callie a warm Freshwater Folk welcome. So,
get myself set up here. Great. Okay. I think I've got everything, so I'll get started. Thank you so much for having me today. This is my first time actually at Twin Ports Freshwater Folk, so I'm very excited to be here today and to be sharing with you a little bit about my early career experiences here along the St. Louis River Estuary and Lake Superior. So my name is Callie Grones, and I have actually been in this role for almost 2 years. And part of the reason why I'm giving this talk today specifically is because I am in my second to last week of service with AmeriCorps at the Lake Superior Reserve and also with the Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve nonprofit organization. So I'm very excited to kind of cap off my service with this presentation and to share a little bit about some of the really amazing opportunities that I have been given as part of my service. And I had a little bit of fun with this presentation. So this is not maybe like your typical research share or research project presentation, but I decided that I wanted to structure my presentation like that. So it was my little way of having fun with it. So with that, I will get started with, here we go. Technical difficulties. Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Perfect. Sweet. Thank you.
Resume.
Thanks, Alex. All right. So the first part of my presentation is going to be like my introduction to my service. So how many of you are familiar with the AmeriCorps program? Okay, a good handful of you in the room. That's good. I'm still going to give a little bit of an overview of the organization or the agency. So AmeriCorps is an independent agency of the United States government, and it connects Americans with service and volunteerism across the country. It was created in the 1990s during the Clinton administration, and part of what it did was it consolidated some of these existing service projects or initiatives that the United States government had already created, like VISTA or Volunteers in Service to America. If any of you are familiar with the Civilian Conservation Corps during the FDR administration, that's another one that was kind of had evolved from the Civilian Conservation Corps to eventually become a part of this program. But members work directly on the ground with organizations all across the country, and they fall into one of the four branches of AmeriCorps, which is the NCCC, or the National Civilian Community Corps, VISTA, which I mentioned previously, Volunteers in Service to America, the Seniors Program, which connects retired folks with service programs in their communities, and also the State and National Branch, which is the branch that I am a part of. Members work directly in the community in one or sometimes more 6 key areas, which is disaster services, economic opportunities, education, environmental stewardship, healthy futures, or working with veteran and military families. So I work within the State and National Branch of AmeriCorps, which means that I am, one more click. I work, so the way that my program is structured is there's the federal agency AmeriCorps. I also am overseen by the state agency, which is called Serve Wisconsin. And then the regional holder of my position is Marshfield Clinic Health Systems. So Marshfield Clinic is one of the several organizations that hold these AmeriCorps positions. They have about 40 people across the state of Wisconsin working in several different community organizations, several of them which are focused on environmental stewardship. So a little bit about my position. So I'm in this AmeriCorps position, and the 2 organizations that I work with day to day are the Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve, as well as the Lake Superior National Estuarine Research Reserve. They work pretty closely together, but they are technically 2 separate entities. Many of you are probably familiar with the Lake Superior Reserve and the Friends. I'll just give a tiny little overview of both of them. So the Lake Superior Reserve is one of 30 national reserves situated on coastal estuaries, and they focus on research, education, outreach, and stewardship. They're a lovely organization. I love working with them. And the Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve, who are also just as amazing, are a nonprofit organization that supports the Lake Superior Reserve through volunteerism, advocacy, and engagement. So I do separate things with both of these organizations, but I'm pretty closely tied to both. So next is my method section. I'm going to put quotes in there. So I'm taking this section to explain a little bit about what my day-to-day life looks like. So when I have my Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve hat on, I am doing a lot of their communications and outreach work. What that might look like in practice is managing their communications. So writing newsletters. If any of you subscribe to the Friends newsletter, I am the primary author of that newsletter. So that's a really fun thing that I get to do, be a part of. I run their social media. And then I also get to do press releases and other kinds of digital outreach. And that often ties into what I'm doing with working with volunteers. So I'm the primary volunteer coordinator for the Friends. And I have the really great fortune to be able to plan a variety of community events and do outreach within the Superior and Duluth community. And I think that's what's been really cool, is to be on the ground and getting to know people and getting to bring these opportunities, or to help bring these opportunities into the community. When I'm working with the Lake Superior Reserve, I'm doing a bunch of different things. I get to participate in the stewardship sector primarily of the reserve. So that includes a lot of different projects, some of which include the return of Ishkode, which is the Ojibwe word for fire, to Wisconsin Point. I've been a part of that planning team since my second week of service, which has been a really incredible opportunity. I've been able to participate in some tree monitoring, tree planting and tree monitoring for restoring black ash forests and in some of our wetlands. I've also been engaged with some non-local species removals, so including buckthorn, spotted knapweed, and occasionally tansy. I've also been, this has been another really cool opportunity, is to assist with educational opportunities. We have a really great education team at the Lake Superior Reserve. So getting to participate in K through 12 field trips, classroom visits, and then we also just recently hosted an educator workshop, bringing together educators from across the Great Lakes region to learn more about how they can incorporate environmental education and stewardship into their classrooms. So that was a really cool thing that I got to do with them. And this is kind of a smaller part of my job, but is also really cool to be a part of, is the helping with data collection. So the reserve has a system-wide monitoring program that has that takes water quality data from the estuary, and occasionally I'll get to go out and help sample with them when we do that. We also have a lot of students that engage with us during the summer, and so they are able to work on some of their projects and engage with some things that they're interested in, and so occasionally I'll help with field work with them. So that was a lot of like words about what I do. So I'm going to share with you some of my results of what I got from my service. Here are a few photos of some on the ground work that I've been able to do. There's some participating in a rice camp on the left there, getting to do some non-local species work with buckthorn and spotted knapweed, which I touched on a little bit. That center photo is beach cleanup. And then the picture on the right is of the day we did the first prescribed fire, first cultural prescribed fire on Wisconsin Point in over 150 years. And as I was compiling photos for this presentation, I really wanted this presentation to be pretty photo heavy, because I feel like it was more fun to depict it in that way. I don't really feel this was a somewhat accurate representation of my service, but I think that this is a lot more accurate in terms of what my service looked like. So I worked independently on projects, but I don't think that there was ever a time during my 2 years that I was working on something that someone else didn't have a hand in or assisted me with or provided support for. And I think that that's what I want to highlight with this, is just truly how collaborative of an environment it is and was over these past 2 years. Particularly, I want to highlight, bottom left is picture is Kirsten Rude. Kirsten has been an amazing supervisor for me, mentor throughout my service, as well as that top middle photo. That's Will Mauchan, who is an incredible supervisor for me as well. He's the kind of supervisor that he just tells you you're doing a good job and it makes you feel good about the work you're doing. So it's always nice to have that support as well. There's also some Lake Superior Reserve staff in there and just some incredible volunteers that I've been able to work with over the past 2 years. So that's kind of a big overview of some of the things I've done. And since there's a lot of science people in the room, I thought I would highlight some of the projects that I was able to participate in as part of my service, and some of the things that I've been able to learn throughout my 2 years here. So the first thing I'll highlight is those beach cleanups. There was a photo of on one of the previous slides from a beach cleanup. This is a kind of like a Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve like staple event. It's something we always do. We do 2 beach cleanups a year on Wisconsin Point. And the reason that that's important is because the Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve have adopted the beaches of Wisconsin Point through the City of Superior's Adopt a Park program. And through that Adopt a Park program, we are required to host 2 beach cleanups per year, one in fall, one in spring. And we often do them in September or October, and then usually one in May. There may be some familiar faces up there, but it really truly is it's truly a group effort. And to highlight that, through my service, I've co-hosted 4 beach cleanups throughout my service. We have had, in those 4 beach cleanups, 101 volunteers participate with us, which is an incredible number. I'm so thankful to all of the people who just on a Saturday morning just decided to come out with us and participate in this stewardship activity. And then to really kind of show why that's important, they picked up 723 pounds of trash that would ordinarily be on the shorelines of Wisconsin Point or even end up in Lake Superior. One of the things that I think is pretty important to highlight is that even though when we think about trash collection, the small pieces matter just as much as the large pieces. I'm sure many of you know that. The most frequent pieces of trash that we were seeing were cigarette butts and small pieces of plastic. And Will always came to our beach cleanups, and he was very adamant that we talk about this point, which is that one cigarette butt can pollute up to 1,000 liters of fresh water. And so when we think about that was our most common piece of trash and that it can pollute that much fresh water, it really, I am so thankful when I look back on that, just to think about all the help that we had and keeping that pollution out of our freshwater systems. Not only are we actually doing the stewardship work itself, but we're also taking data points and collecting data on how much trash we collected and then the type of trash. And we submit that data to the Alliance for the Great Lakes. And that is a 20-year data set that exists of cleanups happening all over the Great Lakes region. And by having that data, the folks at Alliance for the Great Lakes are able to analyze sources of plastic pollution, and also inform decision makers on how we can keep our Great Lakes safe. So that was one of my favorite things that I've been able to do. Another really interesting thing that I was able to be a part of was tree planting and monitoring, which I touched on a tiny bit. So when I came in to the Lake Superior Reserve for my 2 years, This project was already in progress, and it's a project that was led by the Lake Superior Reserve with funding from the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. And the project was meant to restore wetland forests affected. Let me back up just a little bit. So a lot of these wetland forests are predominantly black ash. And so with the more recent threat of the emerald ash borer, these forests have been experiencing a lot of tree mortality. And part of the reason that it's important to have trees in those areas is because it helps with erosion and just the overall health of the wetlands that are there. So the reserve, it was a 3-year project funded by Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and 18 species of trees were planted. About 32,000 total trees were planted on 79 acres across the estuary. Many of these locations that we planted on were islands in the estuary, which also ties back to these islands in the estuary are also protecting stands of monomen. And so this all kind of comes together in this way. We want to keep the island ecosystems healthy so that the monomen can stay healthy. And this project just wrapped up just within the past year. So a little bit of what that looked like is the picture on the left is the tree saplings. We put them in a little bag. I had never done this before, so this was very interesting for me, was to kind of have this little belt, this little bag around my waist. And we would all go together with Wisconsin Conservation Corps, who are also AmeriCorps folks, working on projects across the state of Wisconsin. But they came out and helped us plant these trees. And then several of the locations where we planted trees, the reserve actually set up monitoring plots so we could go back and see how the trees were doing. We would go out. The photo on the second from left is me with a metal detector, which I never thought you could use a metal detector to find a tree. But each tree had a little tree tag so that we could come back and take data on that tree. And the picture on the second from the right is the crew that day. There was several days of monitoring, but we would go out and measure the trees' diameter, their height, and if they had experienced, and if they were alive or dead, and if they had experienced any browse from wildlife. And then that picture on the right is of, I believe that's a maple tree. But as you can see with the surrounding vegetation, sometimes it was a little bit difficult to find those trees, but that was a really cool project that I was able to be a part of. And I learned so much just about forest ecology and particularly wetland forest ecology through that process. And it was fun to use a metal detector. So, oh, this one's a fun one. So as part of my event coordination and collaboration with planning events for the Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve, we got to plan an event series called Everyone Can Bird. And birds are really cool. That's another thing I learned when I came to the Lake Superior Reserve. There were so many birders in our group, and they really got me hooked on birding. So this has been a really fun one to be a part of. So I've participated in 6 events, or helped to co-host 6 events. These events have been happening since 2022, and they've really grown in the past, ever since we started these events. So in 2024, we had 130 participants over these 3 events. We have one in spring, one in summer, and one in fall. And then last year we had 212 total participants, and we are well on our way. We have one more event at Hawk Ridge that during the fall migration. So if you want to check out some cool raptors, come on out to that event. But we are well on our way to surpassing the total participants for 2026. Locations include spots in Duluth like Chambers Grove and Hawk Ridge. as well as locations in Superior, like Barker's Island, Woodstock Bay, and Millennium Trail. And this event is focused on birds. It's about birds, but really what we want to focus on is accessible community recreation. So we really want to make sure that we have so many amazing places in Superior and Duluth, and we want to make sure that no matter your age or ability, that you're able to come out and experience everything that these communities have to offer. And so part of what we do is in those events is we offer some event features, like we offer free transportation to from locations in Superior and Duluth. We rent a school bus, and we try to strategically place our spots near DTA routes so that people can come and participate if they don't have a vehicle. We provide ASL interpretation at the events. We have a track chair, which is actually in the top left photo there. That's the track chair. That's an accessible wheelchair to be able to move along hiking trails and things like that. We also offer other mobility equipment as well. And then we also offer things like binoculars and spotting scopes for people in case they want to participate but don't have their own equipment. And these have been really cool just to see people learn things about birds. We have some incredible bird guides who dedicate their time to coming out and leading people on bird walks. And we also have stationary activities for folks as well. So it's a really great group of folks to plan these events with, and also just the folks that come out are really engaged with learning, and these have been really fun. So like anything you do in life, not everything goes according to plan. So I felt like this was an important part of what happened with my service, and I wanted to just touch a little bit on it. So last April, on Monday, April 28th, I received this email, and it informed me that the grant that I was on had been terminated through an initiative from the US government. And so this part of the reason why I put this on here is because there was a lot of uncertainty at the time, but it also really, there was so much community support, and it kind of reinforced this connection that I had with everybody. And it, even in the good times, you feel that support. And then also sometimes in the hard times, you feel that support. And so this was something that happened during my service, but then there was a decision that came out through the courts, and I was able to come back into the program. So I added this slide in a little bit to kind of showcase the the range of feelings that I experienced during my service. The picture on the left was an interview I gave with the Duluth News Tribune very shortly after my position had been terminated. And then the photo on the right is an interview that I gave very recently with Wisconsin Public Radio. And part of the reason I added that in there is because the photo that they used in the story kind of leads into my last point, which is something that was unexpected and was probably, I can't pick favorites of the things that I've been able to do, but is probably one of the most meaningful things I was able to be a part of. Everything was meaningful, but and that is being able to be a part of the Wisconsin Point Ishkode team, and Ishkode is the Ojibwe word for fire. So part of how this planning team came to be was because of a professor who is in the second photo from the right here. He did some research. His name's Dr. Evan Larson. He's a dendrochronologist from UW-Platteville. And he worked with Melanie Montano, who is a grad student at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities and is also a member of the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Ojibwe. And they co-led this research project, which combined tree rings from red pine stumps on Wisconsin and Minnesota Point, both the points, with Ojibwe knowledge and history and stories about the folks that lived and settled there. And they came to the conclusion in this paper, which is something that Ojibwe people know, is that the red pine forests on Minnesota and Wisconsin Point, much like many of the Great Lakes pine forests in the region, are fire dependent, and they're fire dependent because of people's relationships with fire. So people were actually, for many different reasons, were using fire and lighting fires to promote blueberries. They were promoting an open understory. So a typical pine forest, you can walk through and it's very clear. You can see through it. And then also one of the other reasons that folks were using fire was to promote, to get sap from these red pine trees to build birch bark canoes. So for many reasons, those are just a couple. And so when Ojibwe people were forced from the point by the US government, these fires stopped happening here. And these ecosystems hadn't seen fire in, I believe, before the burn happened, it was 159 years of no fire. And so if you go out to Wisconsin Point, it's beautiful red pine, but was so much, the understory was really dense. We were seeing lots of blueberry plants, but they hadn't seen fire in a while. And so a group from the city of Superior, the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Ojibwe, Lake Superior Reserve, and the Nature Conservancy all got together and said, okay, how can we put fire back on the landscape in a way that's going to be safe for the community, is also going to acknowledge this history of Ojibwe people using fire in this way, and to take care of our red pine forests, because red pine are a fire dependent species. They actually need a bare soil to actually regrow or to start sprouting new red pine. And if you go out there right now, there's white pine saplings, but there are really no red pine saplings. So I had a little bit of prescribed fire experience from college, but this project and being able to kind of tag along and then become a part of this planning team really expanded knowledge of fire and my love of fire. I love working with fire. It's something that is really has been a really deep and meaningful part of my early career. And I've been able to kind of be a part of a lot of different things. So I was able to assist the comms team. So Bridget Maruska, who's the Parks, Rec, and Forestry Director for the City of Superior, and Marie Sweekov, who is just an incredible science communicator. I learned a lot from them about how do we inform the public on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and just kind of got to expand my communication skills in that way. I was also able to participate in some pre and post fire monitoring, which is another thing that I had never done before. So I was able to assist Kirsten and the stewardship sector of the reserve. And we had a student named Daniel, who was a Noah Holling scholar, who was with us for the summer. We all got to work on that together and see how the forest was prior to the fire. And then we just finished our monitoring for this year post fire. And then I was able to actually be on the ignition squad for the prescribed fire that happened on November 5th, 2025. And I really appreciate the photo, the bottom photo there, because I was able to I was able to participate in that really significant and special thing. And I also was able to, one of my favorite things about that burn was being able to be on the ignition squad with Dr. Evan Larson, who did this research, and to almost like watch what was happening. That was a really meaningful thing because that was research that he helped to develop. And it was just a really special day. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to move on to my discussion. And I'm taking this time to talk about, so I had all of these experiences that I'm so grateful for and have been able to learn from so many different people in this place. And I want to share a little bit about like what my takeaways were from my 2 years of service, especially as an early career professional in this really unique place. So I'm going to take my notes over here so I don't miss anything. But the first thing that I learned was to say yes. And that's a really general thing to say, but I found that when this was my first position post getting my bachelor's degree. I had some work experience, but this was really my first going to a full-time work experience. And I also moved here a week before my position started. So I was in a new place. I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't know anybody, actually. I didn't know anybody here. And it was kind of a fresh start. And the thing that I'm so grateful for is that the reserve and the friends really took their time to introduce me to this place and gave me experiences that I would never have otherwise had. I was able to be a part of the Ishkode project because I was asked if I wanted to be a part of that. I was able to learn how to teach macroinvertebrate and fish behavior lessons at the aquarium because the education staff said, hey, do you want to come help us teach? And you can lead this lesson if you want. And then just on top of that, all of the different stewardship activities that I was given, and knowledge that I was given, and the fact that people took the time to actually to teach me all of those things. And I think as an early career professional, I really learned like, oh yeah, like when somebody asks you if you want to do something and it excites you and you don't really know a lot about it, but it still is something that you think is interesting and want to learn more about, I think the thing that I've learned is just to say yes. Because that completely changed the way that my service went because of the opportunities that I was given. Kind of going off of that point, my next one is show up ready to learn. So I saw something like when I first started my position on the internet, and it said something like, starting a new job is like you're a new character in season 7 of a sitcom that's been on for a long time. And I felt like that was super accurate because I came into this role and I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of things going on already. There's a bunch of people to meet. It seems like there are these established projects and people know this place. Like people are just, this is their day-to-day life. This is what they're doing. And this is all completely new for me. And so I realized that I had a lot to learn, and that was intimidating. It was intimidating to be in a new place and not really know a lot about what was going on. But I think what was really cool was just kind of showing up, listening to folks who knew this place much better than I do, and starting to just slowly gather information about this place. And I got really excited when I would start leading events, and then all of a sudden I would say something and I realized that that was information that somebody had told me, and I was like repeating it out loud and was, oh my gosh, I do know something and I'm passing it along to somebody else. This is amazing. And this continues to happen every day of my job. Like, I am not done learning at all about this place, but it feels nice to kind of be 2 years in and to say, oh my gosh, I've learned 2 years worth of knowledge, and I could spend my whole career here and still not know everything there is to know about this place. But so that's something that I will definitely take with me into my next role, and I think is important and something that I learned. The next thing that I learned, and I think speaks as a testament to you all and everyone that works here, is I don't really have a lot of experience working with in other places. I was a student employee when I was at the Stevens Point, but this was really like my first experience working with in a job in this way. And one of the things that I was like, is this normal? Does this typically happen? Was how much collaboration is happening in this place. I was astounded by how many different agencies, different community organizations, all kind of working on their own things, still found ways to come together and work and pass on knowledge or provide technical support, or just to have. It was just really astounding to me to see how much people collaborated with each other. And it seemed like truly liked collaborating with each other. And I think that also speaks to the fact that we have Twin Ports Freshwater Folk, because people just want to get to know each other. And that was something that I learned, was that collaboration can maybe make things a little bit more complicated, but I also think it makes the work better. And I can at least speak to that through what I was able to do. I never planned things completely alone. I led certain events, but I always had help. And whether that was event organizers who kind of helped me to see things in a new way, or volunteers saying like, hey, this was really great. Maybe we could do XYZ to make this better. The collaboration part of it is really what makes the work better. And that was what I learned through all of my collaborations with everybody. I was trying to make a list of everybody that I have met or collaborated with or worked with very briefly. I stopped at 25 organizations. I don't really know if I'm going to be able to make a full list, but that was something that was really incredible. And I'm so thankful for that, because they have all made me better. Kind of going off of that too, kind of all of these are somewhat related in some way, but I realized that community comes in many forms. So I was welcomed into this community as somebody new and given the space to learn and grow. And I am so fortunate to be able to have met many different circles of community. So whether that be the folks at the reserve, the folks with the friends, with volunteers that I have been working with for the past 4 years, or 2 years. Yeah, I've been here for 4 years. Sometimes it feels like 4 years, but it's only been 2. But anyway, I feel like I've been able to see, one of the really cool experiences that I've been able to do is to help form community or facilitate places where community can be built, and then also to become a part of a community. So to kind of come in to an already established community, no matter where that is, and really be welcomed there. So I'm really thankful for that. And also going off of that is that the community, I learned, isn't just people, but it's actually the places and the spaces where I was working in. So that leads me to my last point of the land and the water take care of you. And this is something that I kind of realized recently. When I graduated in 2024, I was 21 years old. I'm 23, so I really haven't grown up that much, but I was 21 years old, and I really had this idea of like, oh, I want to get in there and really do what I can to make the environment better. Like, what can I do? Just kind of this young, I'm still only 23, but so I still have a lot of growing to do. But I came here kind of with this idea of like, okay, time to get to work. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to learn? And very quickly, I started to realize that whether it was from the folks who already have been working here, who know this place, whether it was from experiences out on the landscape, I slowly started to realize that, oh, if I'm one small part of a very, very big story that's happening. And it started to kind of ground me into that work of like, oh, okay, I can't, in the grand scheme of things, I'm one person. I can do some things, but I can take care of the land and water in the way that I can. And other folks are doing the same thing. And through those experiences, I realized, like, as much as I have contributed, in event planning or, coordinating volunteers, beach cleanup, stewardship, whatever it might have been, I feel like I've gotten 2 or 3 times more out of it from just my own personal growth and connection to this place. And so that really kind of changed my perspective on like, yeah, we have to take care of our land and water. That's a really important thing that we have to do. But I never understood this like reciprocal kind of relationship until I kept having new experiences and reflecting on this. It has made me want to stay here because this is a special place. And I'm so lucky to kind of have randomly ended up here in kind of this, in this position. And it gave me a lot of opportunity to just see what was possible. So with that, I'm moving on to my acknowledgement section of my presentation. This is one slide, and the one slide does not possibly do it justice because I'm just so thankful for everyone that has contributed to this opportunity for me. But I'll do my best to condense it a little bit. First of all, I want to thank the Lake Superior National Estuarine Research Reserve staff, especially Kirsten Rude and Deanna Erickson, who have been my supervisors and my mentors. But the reserve really did just kind of take me in as one of their own, and I'm really thankful for that. I also want to thank the Friends of the Lake Superior Reserve Board, who provided me with this opportunity to have this position, and to see them dedicate their time outside of their daily lives to the estuary in this way was really inspiring. And I also want to give a special thanks to Will Mauchon again for just being an incredible supervisor and really just kind of being like my personal cheerleader this whole time. I think everybody needs a Will in their life. I also want to thank Marshfield Clinic Health Systems and Serve Wisconsin, especially Allison McCormick and Shelley Kaiser. They were my logistical and technical support for my position. They provided the support from the Marshfield side of things. I want to say thank you to the incredible volunteers and community members of the Superior and the Duluth community. It's been really inspiring to work with all of you and to be able to see how much everybody cares. That has been a really incredible gift to have. And then this part contains a lot of people, but all organizations, collaborators, and partners I've worked with. If I have worked with you in any capacity, I want to say thank you to you for that. You have everyone who I've been able to work with, I've learned from and has really contributed to my 2 years here. in a really, really positive way. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for that. With that, I want to say thank you to all of you for listening to me talk about my service for 45 minutes. And I'm wrapping up my service. Next week is my last day. So I'm just so thankful to have been able to have this experience and to be able to work in this capacity. And I look forward to whatever comes next. So thank you so much.
If you have questions, please raise your hand. If you are online and you have questions, please put them in the chat and I will read them. Do we have any questions in the room? We have one from Julie.
Do that feel like two different jobs or like how much do these overlap?
I think for me, it didn't really feel like, I felt like I was just in one role, and it really kind of flowed together in a really kind of unique way for me, at least. I think I was, you know, the reserve staff and the friends are very close. Like they work very closely together. But I think day to day, I was probably the primary person that was thinking about both organizations at the same time. Sometimes I'd spend the morning planning for a buckthorn pull, and then like later that day I would be working with the educators. And so it was this really there are usually like 3 or 4, sometimes 5 things going on at the same time in my day-to-day work life that I was thinking about. But that was also a really great way for me to get oriented to the work that was happening here. So thinking about many different things at the same time felt like one job, and kind of worked out in this really unique way. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that aspect of the job.
I think we have time for one more question. In the back.
I don't think so. Yeah. So when I came into this, this might be a question that I don't know a lot about. When I came into this position, that project was just wrapping up. And so I am not as familiar with that project. I know why it exists and why people were doing work on it, but I don't know who exactly was all involved with that. But I agree. It's beautiful down there. Yeah.
So, yeah, young folks, all on sort of now full time. Hey, you know, just the Green Corps and AmeriCorps, just such great job, very good folks who are ready to go.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have one final question from online, which is, what are your plans next?
So that's a good question. So my term ends with AmeriCorps, with the reserve, next Friday, so August 14th. And the following Monday on August 17th, I will be starting a full-time position as a communications and outreach coordinator for the St. Louis River Alliance. So I'm very excited about that new opportunity.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for, so please join me in giving one final round of applause. And then we will see you next month. We'll be back here at the again. So thanks everyone for coming.